when when there is a relationship between two and one takes more energy than the other, or one abuses the other, which is a form of taking energy from the other
Mhm.
without giving in return, without nourishing the other, there is a depth. There is a hole that was made in the fabric of life because that person or that being belongs to the fabric of life. And then by taking without giving in exchange, we made a hole, we made a damage in the, we even can put it this way, in the economy of the universe.
Hi, I'm Brilliant, your host for this show. I know that I'm incredibly blessed. As the son of self-made billionaires, I've seen the high price some people pay for success, and I've learned that money really can't buy happiness. But I've also had the good fortune to learn directly from many of the world's leading teachers. If you're ready to be, do, have, and give more, this podcast is for you. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the School for Good Living. Brilliant here. And today I have a returning guest, a good friend, and someone who's changed my life. And if you listen to him for long, or spend much time with him, he just might change yours too. His name is Arkan Lushwala. He was consecrated from a young age to be an Andean healer and ceremonial leader. In this conversation, we talk about his most recent book. It's called The Spirit of the Glacier Speaks, Ancestral Teachings of the Andean World for the Time of Natural Disorder. In this conversation, we explore the transformative power of chaos to remedy what we are unable to remedy ourselves. We talk about how any of us as individuals can possibly make any meaningful difference when it comes to the massive global challenges we're facing. We talk about the myth of human supremacy. We also explore the importance of cultivating relationships and the fact that they are the source of true wealth. We talk about healing, having a healthy connection to the earth, to other people, and to ourselves. We talk about reciprocity, balance with nature and the earth. And we also talk about living from your heart, how to listen to your spirit, things that Arkan's teachings make very practical, come from a long line of Andean wisdom. Again, I hope you have the opportunity to learn from Arkan, even if it's only this conversation, picking up one of his books, or if you ever have the privilege to participate in one of the ceremonies he leads in Peru or North America or sometimes other places. What a gift that would be. So to see if it's something you are interested in, please enjoy this conversation with my friend and teacher, Arkan Lushwala. Arkan, welcome back to the School for Good Living.
Thank you, Brilliant. Thank you for having me again. I'm here to serve you and the people who are listening.
Thank you. I have been looking forward to this. We recorded together a few years ago. Many things have changed. A lot of things have changed since then. One of them being you have written a new book, a book called The Spirit of the Glacier Speaks, Ancestral Teachings of the Andean World for the Time of Natural Disorder. Will you tell me, why did you write this book? Who did you write it for? And what did you want it to do for them?
My ancestors didn't write books, and still their wisdom was very, very, very high wisdom, very developed. And the wisdom of our ancestors in the Andean Amazonian world can be very useful today for humanity to face this crisis and to find the path, the way out of this crisis into a new humanity that has a better relationship with the earth, that is less confused, that knows how to follow original instructions and guidance, to have the most healthy and beautiful way of life possible. This ancient wisdom of our ancestors in the Andean world can be very useful today. And this is why I wrote this book, because it became clear to me in my work as a healer, as a ceremonial leader, in my relationship with organizations and people from all over the world, that there was kind of this hidden treasure that has not been exposed enough. The wisdom of the ancient Andean people who didn't write books. It's all oral, it's all in the ceremonies, in the dances, in the way people interact in indigenous communities in the Andes, in the Amazon. But the modern world is more used to learning with books, with teachings, with kind of organized, a well organized presentation of life principles and teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to accept this call, this mission of writing a book that transmits those ancient principles. And originally, I thought I was just writing it for my own people, for my people in South America, who are very, very hungry to really know and remember what was the wisdom of our ancestors, given that we were colonized, given that for a long time we have been following the instructions that came from people from another part of the world. And even for us in South America, there isn't a consistent way of teaching the ancient wisdom of our ancestors. So speaking with some friends in Cusco, in the place where I come from, they all agree that it was necessary to have books like this to keep the memory alive and to allow the young people, all the people of our countries to have access to this ancient memory that really is their inheritance. It's our inheritance. It's something that we can really use to know who we are and what is the wisdom that we carry in our genetic memory.
Yeah.
That was originally my intention, to provide this for our own people that have been colonized.
Mm.
And then I, realized, no, this is universal. The wisdom of our ancestors in the Andes is not patriotic. It's not, this is just us and we are different than the rest. And that's what's very beautiful about our ancestors in the Andean world. They followed universal principles that can be really applied anywhere in the world. And of course, every nation has to have their own identity based on their environment,
Mm-hmm.
their mountains, their jungles, their beaches, what surrounds them, what feeds them is what makes them have a certain way of being, a certain specific quality and flavor. But beyond that, there are certain life principles that are truly universal, that can be the foundation of a sacred and good way of life anywhere in the world, and that are actually probably similar for many, many ancient, wise tribes, communities, and even civilizations. So when I became aware of that, I said, well, I'm okay with also publishing this book in English. And actually, the opportunity to publish it in English came before the opportunity to publish it in Peru, which I'm going to do in the next few months. It was magic. It was very fluid. It was very fluid how the opportunity showed up to publish this book with these people of a publisher named Disruption Books. Very, very good, nice people that I work with to publish this book. So it's now, first of all, available to the world.
Yeah.
And in a few months, it will be more specifically available to my people in Peru
Wow.
and all of South America, actually.
Will you tell me the story of how it came to be published with Disruption?
Um, I had the manuscript almost ready in Spanish,
Mhm.
and the original title of the book is a Quechua word, Saxachiqui, which we can talk about in a moment if you like. And uh, and a friend of mine, his name is Peter Bokor. He said I could probably translate your book to English. I know enough Spanish, which I didn't know. And I said, "Oh, Peter, that'd be great because I know him and I know that he would understand my culture and respect it and do his best to not change it while translating."
Mhm.
I really trusted that about Peter, so he did it. He translated it, and then after he translated it, I had to rewrite the book. And then I asked him, Peter, would you be willing to translate it again? He said, yeah, of course. And he did it again.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I worked with his translation because there were some cultural aspects of what I wrote that were difficult to write in English
Mhm.
or that he didn't know well enough to be able to translate. So I made some corrections, rewrote what he did. And then I realized this book is it's almost ready for publishing. I'm gonna consult with an editor. And then a friend of mine recommended this editor, Michelle Puckett, a very nice lady. She read the manuscript and she said, "This is almost ready. I can help you edit it." And it was also with her a very fluid and beautiful work that we did together. So it would be very well written in English without diluting the cultural flavor and my voice,
Mhm.
eh, for which I am very grateful to Michelle Puckett. And then when I saw that, we had this another friend, Michael Slavey. I was talking with him. I said because he had published a book. I said, Michael, who published your book? He said, I'll put you in touch with him. Disruption Books. So I talked to Chris Pauls, the lady who is one of those who I think she's the one who runs Disruption Books. And I said, what I don't want to do is wait more than a year to publish this book. You would be willing to publish it in 6 months? And she said, yes.
Wow.
We have checked your work, your previous books. Send me your manuscript. She read it and she said, yeah, we want to publish it and we commit to do it in 6 months.
Wow.
And so,
Amazing.
it was yes, yes, yes to everything. It happened very fluidly and very fast and very well done, actually. They did a beautiful work publishing this book.
Yeah.
So, because of how it flew and how natural it was, that told my heart, go for it. Your plan was to publish it first in Peru in Spanish, but if this is happening like this, it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And now that I hear comments and I see how it is helping people here in the United States and even some people in Europe that have read the book, I am surprised of how useful they find it. They find that it's really helping them and guiding them in the work they are doing. I'm talking about people who are doing really good work on favor of, a change in humanity and taking better care of the earth and people. So I'm very happy with that. It's my what I wanted is to write a book that was useful for these times, and it seems to be the case. It's happening that way.
Yeah. It definitely is that for me. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons I say that is because of some of the words you use. And I appreciate and what I mean by that is some of the Quechua words and the distinctions that those introduce for me. And I love that there's this glossary of Quechua words in the back.
Yeah.
And it introduces me to concepts that weren't available to me as far as I knew without the word or the language for them. Right. And speaking of that, I do want to go back to what was the title that you had and how
The
does
original title, which is the one I'm still going to use when I publish it in Spanish, is Saxachiqui. Saksai means to satiate. Saksai. People who have visited Peru know about a very beautiful, powerful temple in Cusco called Saksai Waman. There's that Saksai word, Saksai, to satiate. Chi is a suffix that means something like make it happen. Chi is make it happen. And Kui, Kuy, uh, the best way to translate that is a suffix also that added to a word says with tenderness for your benefit.
Mm.
Ku or kui or kuyai, tender affection, but also the suffix ku is for your benefit. So saksachikui means make yourself satiated with tenderness for your benefit.
Mm.
And this puts in a nutshell what the ancient people of the Andes, let's say the founders of our cultures, thousands of years ago, uh, transmitted to the communities. That was kind of the main cultural thread, to develop a culture where to be satiated and fulfilled was the main goal. That was the way of fulfillment and satiation, instead of developing culture based on always thinking that we need to have more, or that we need to do more, or that we need to not feel satisfied and always have more. So, in contrast with what is happening in the modern world and what is damaging the modern world, this is a very powerful way of seeing things and a very powerful way of developing culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we have this conversation, I'm reminded of something our friend Lynn Twist writes about in her book, The Soul of Money, where she talks about the myth of scarcity and as a possibility in contrast to scarcity, this idea of sufficiency, right? And not this need to constantly be grasping for more, this need to just always be driven, searching, unfulfilled, right? But this, again, such a beautiful term, if I have it, Saskai Chi Kui.
Saksa Chikui.
Chi Kui.
Saksa Chikui.
Saksa Chikui. That's great. And as I hear the word, there's a little bit in English. I know there's not related etymologically from the word's origin, probably. But what's interesting is that a little bit it sounds like success, the way that begins. Quechua.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, that's the real success, right?
Yeah.
An individual and for a community or a nation to arrive to total fulfillment and satisfaction, to well-being, to full well-being. Yeah, we are doing well.
Yeah,
we are doing well. That's what the ancient people were trying to help their communities do. Well-being, good life, beautiful life, satisfied lives, fulfilled beings, and the fulfillment of our beings has to be both material and spiritual. If it is only material, the spiritual stays really hungry, and then we think that we can fill that hunger or that void by having more material satisfaction or success, and that doesn't work at all. So the satisfaction never goes away. And that is the course of modern humanity, which has put us in a position of destroying the earth, because we have to take things from the earth to consume and fill that void.
Yeah. In fact, you include a sentence in the book where you discuss that human supremacy has become a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And what you talk about also with being satiated and this relationship of the material and the spiritual, I'm very interested in. And you include this sentence in the book that says, in our culture, wealth does not come from accumulating things, but from having good relationships. Right?
Yes.
Will you talk more about the power and the value or the importance, the necessity of relationship or relationships?
Yes. In Quechua, the word for poor is huacha. And huacha doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of money or you don't have enough money or enough material wealth. It literally means that you don't have community. So in the ancient culture, in our culture, even today, because we still use that word, poverty is the lack of good relationships. When we have good relationships, we are part of something bigger than ourselves. And that which is bigger than ourselves that we belong to, that is where the wealth is. It's full of resources, it's full of energy, it's full of opportunity, it's full of opportunities to give help and receive help. So then, when we find ourselves in need of help, when we find ourselves with less than what we need to have a good life, then it's not a big problem because we belong to something that has that which we need and that we will provide it to us. And the fact that we have lived an entire life cultivating those relationships, nourishing those relationships, helping others when they need help, being kind and generous with those around us, not only humans, not only humans, also in the nature that is around us. Then those good relationships we have cultivated, they are the wealth. That is a treasure to have because you can rely on those good relationships. Those beings, those people, they will show up for you when you need them. And you will never really suffer from scarcity or from lack of something because they wouldn't allow it. And really, this sounds like utopic or idealistic, but in indigenous communities that are alive today, in where I come from, in Cusco or in the Amazon jungle, in many parts, this culture still exists. Where that the people are going to take care of you if something happens to you or to your family.
Yeah.
And not only, again, as I said before, not only humans like you, because you can also have good relationships with lakes, with mountains, with trees, with animal spirits, with stars, with the sun, and really make them part of your family. Talk to them, listen to them, feed them, make offerings to them. And when you need help, when you need healing, when you need abundance, when you need something that you don't have that is essential for your life or your family, you can also ask them to help you. And they help you. They really help you. So it's not only with humans, it's also with everything else that exists in nature.
Yeah.
So to end this part, imagine how terrible it is to damage those relationships. Then the poverty increases, the lack of partners, the lack of allies in the natural world increases because there's no good relationship between humans and the rest of the forms of life in nature. So then they see us as takers.
Yeah.
And there's no good relationship, then they don't show up for us when we need them.
Yeah, it's interesting. And in a moment, I want to ask a little more about what one thing you just said about offerings and how we again in the North or the West or whatever might do that. But before I do, I want to reflect back something that I learned in a conversation with someone else I interviewed. He's a healer. He has Native American roots. Is someone named Louis Malmadrona. He's an author, and he and I talked a few years ago. And one of the things that he shared with me was that in the Native communities, when someone is suffering and is brought to a healer of some kind, that almost always the healer will begin by asking about that person's relationships, understanding that if there's suffering, if there's addiction, if there's illness of some kind, that it's not separate from that person's relationships. Now, I thought that was super interesting because that's not the Western perspective. The Western perspective is like, where does it hurt? And let's get a pill or a surgery. But it sees the individual as separate somehow from others or from nature. And I thought that was a really beautiful view of being more holistic and aware.
Yes. Yeah. And in damaged relationships or broken relationships, there is always something to repair.
Yeah.
There is something that was abused or something where energy was taken without giving energy in return.
Mm.
When there is a relationship between two and one takes more energy than the other, or one abuses the other, which is a form of taking energy from the other, without giving in return, without nourishing the other, there is a depth. There is a hole that was made in the fabric of life, because that person or that being belongs to the fabric of life. And then by taking without giving in exchange, we made a hole. We made a damage in the, we even can put it this way, in the economy of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like stealing something in some way.
Yeah.
So when we do healing, we look for those things, because if the healing begins with an offering to repair that, to feed that which was damaged, so it can repair itself or it can recover its energy, its integrity, resolves the problem in a major way, in a really big way. So part of the diagnose or part of the way of finding out how to help someone who comes with an illness is to ask, what offering do we have to make to compensate for the mistakes that this person made, or for how this person became damaged by someone else or something else. Because let's say that is the case, that this person was actually damaged by something else or someone else, there has to be some energy, some sacred power that comes to fill that emptiness, to nourish that damaged part of that person. The energy has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And the healer finds, where is it going to come from? Let's say it's going to come from that mountain that is over there, because that mountain has a lot of power and energy. Then an offering is made to that mountain, because we cannot just take something from the mountain without feeding the mountain, because if we don't feed the mountain, we cause a damage to the mountain. It's all about balance. Everything has to always stay in balance. When something loses energy or energy is taken from it, life force is taken from it, it's got to be compensated. So one of the reasons why we make offerings is to compensate, either for a damage that the sick person caused to something else or someone else, or to compensate for the energy that some source is going to give to that person, so that person receives help and medicine.
It makes so much sense when it's explained that way. But again, I think this is one of those things that as a society, the Western society is just generally not aware of, or maybe sadly, when it starts to become aware of it, at least some people in the culture will just reject that. oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's superstition, or there's no evidence for that. Yet I'm convinced if we are present and we are quiet, that we can feel that.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
so.
And I have to bring an example that really will take all of us home with this subject. And it's not an easy one to hear. It's related to people who are dying. We all probably had the experience. I had it, and you had it. Most people had it, of accompanying a relative, a loved one who is ready to depart, to leave this world. And unless it is a sudden death from an accident or something like that, if there is time to die, most people would spend that time looking at their relationships, to get ready to go clean, to go purified, to have a good ascension, to not be heavy, to not have a heavy soul. People would instinctively do a certain work in their soul, in their mind, in their heart, to forgive and ask for forgiveness, to repair certain relationships, to not die with regret, to not die with an unfinished uh, repair of a relationship. It is essential. It's really important. And and I say, why do we need to wait until that moment?
Mm.
We can do it today. We can do it anytime. We can actually make it a habit, to always do that. And then when we have pains, when we have aches, when we get sick, not just run. Of course, if we need to go to the doctor, we have to go to the doctor. I'm not saying don't do that. But what I'm saying, even if you do that, ask the question, why is this happening to me? Did I break something? Have I damaged the fabric of life, the sacred web of life? Or has something damaged me from the outside? I need to look at that, because we are one. We are one. What I do to you, I'm doing it to myself. What I do to a tree, I'm doing it to myself. What I'm doing to water, I'm doing it to myself. Because it's one life. And that's sometimes the ignorance that is carried in the modern world, is not to remember that and think that the other is just the other. No, the other is not just the other. The other is also me. What I do to the other, being human or someone from nature, I'm doing it to myself. I belong to the same life. I am part of the same body. And if I hurt that body that one belongs to, I'm hurting also the body that I belong to. And
Yeah.
if that body gets sick, I will get sick. So I need to assume a responsibility in keeping the big body that I belong to healthy. And in the doing of that, in practicing that, living with a culture that does that, I learn. I develop my awareness. I grow my consciousness. I am conscious. I am aware how my actions have an influence in the state of the big body that I belong to.
Yeah.
What a wonderful, powerful thing, to be aware of that. Because then you walk on earth, you live your life with awareness, with care, with responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
with love for yourself. There cannot be love for yourself if you don't love the body that contains you, the earth, the universe, the one life that you are a little cell of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a beautiful perspective. And as you share it, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a friend of mine who started the company Ancestry.com, if you know, where you can go research your DNA and see your family tree and all this. And
Yes.
and when I asked him why he chose that, why did you make that a business? He shared that he had learned in his studies at university that the greatest predictor of the health and happiness of a child as it grew was its sense of connection to its family. Was how well did it know its family history, the people, the stories, where it came from. And as I hear you talk about this, us cultivating an awareness of the fact that we're all smaller parts of a much larger body, I think that my friend was right, that research was right about health and happiness and well-being come from this connection to family. And family is not just one lineage. It's all of life. It's all of nature.
Yes. Yes. Some advantage that we have in places where indigenous culture is still alive, the advantage comes from not living in a city. The advantage comes from always having close to us the people who nourish us, the plants that nourish us, the animals that nourish us, the trees and the plants that give us our medicines, the
Mm,
mountains that produce the medicines, the the rivers and the creeks and the stones that have power that are in those mountains. All that is part of our community. All those are relatives.
mm,
And in some way, all those are part of what makes us be who we are.
yeah.
Because the animals that we hunt or that we take care of, that then we eat, then they continue living. Their energy, their spirit continues living within us. So it is part of us. They are part of us.
Yeah.
And because of that, we have a lot of respect for them and a lot of gratitude to them. So when we take their life, so we continue being alive, we don't do it in a disrespectful way. And we don't abuse it. We don't do more than what we need. And we know that it is a gift, that they are giving their life for us. And, and it is, wow, how beautiful, how powerful that you want to give your life so I may continue being alive, being a plant or an animal, you know, and to live with that gratitude and that respectful relationship with those beings that don't mind doing that makes us be very humble, because to do something like what they do for us requires immense, immense power, immense of that which many people call love, right?
Yeah.
Compassion for us, so we may continue living, so we don't go hungry. Those are very important relationships. So in our indigenous villages, we have the opportunity to always be in relationship with them, to talk to them, to thank them, to make offerings to them, to do ceremonies with them, to dance with them, to make also their lives more sacred and more beautiful by providing to them uh, at least a song,
Mm,
to sing to them, to transmit to them the beauty and the sacredness that comes from the sacred speech and the singing and the sacred dances that we humans are capable of producing. That's what we give in return. And they love that. The trees, the plants, the animals, the mountains, they love that vibration, sacred vibration that we humans produce. It is food for them.
mm,
So that's the exchange. We give that and they feed us. So unfortunately, when big cities were created and so many people live in these big cities away from what I just described, it is easy to forget. When you just go buy the food in the market and you didn't see the animal, you were not able to give thanks. Not even the animal, the plants too. The lettuce, the tomato, the arugula, the beans, the carrots. It's more. It I think that it's not good for our memory.
Yeah.
We forget something essential. So yeah, so relationships, going back to what you were saying, brilliant relationships create a good relationships are the foundation of a very good, beautiful life.
Yeah.
And we need to cultivate them, not just take them for granted, cultivate them, make
Yeah.
an effort to develop them in a healthy way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that brings me back to a question, and you touched on it here in a big way about the songs and the dancing and sharing those vibrations. How else can we, again, in the modern world, as we call it, as though that's something, some badge to be proud of, right? But how can we, excuse me, make offerings that will help us connect with life and help ensure this balance, this reciprocity, this connection, this relationship, where I'll just jump ahead for a moment and say, when I have the privilege of being with you and with the community at Arawaka, before every meal, there's an offering made, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I don't do the same thing at home.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, for myself, I'll pause and have a moment. I'll do my best to express a moment of gratitude silently. I don't pray as a family with my family, usually over meals. I certainly don't get a little offering bowl of what we're eating and offer it to Pachamama, to the earth. But I sometimes, when I'm there, it just feels so natural. But I'm wondering, how can we in the modern developed world make the kinds of offerings that will help us to ensure that healthy connection?
Yeah. Well, that's a very, very profound question, and I thank you, Brilliant, for the question. I speak about this in the book in a couple of places. Modern humanity could be because of living in big cities, because of the way it became very intellectual, and also because of human supremacy, because human supremacy is also intellectual. It's a way of thinking where we observe things, where we analyze things, we study things from a place of superiority. It's like we go to the zoo to watch animals, or we watch documentaries with animals, but the animals don't do that to us. The animals don't do documentaries about humans.
Mm-hmm.
The animals don't have a zoo of humans to go visit them and watch them, even if it is with appreciation. So there is a, a position that humanity has taken in front of nature that has gone as far as having nature just be the product of what we think nature is, instead of having a relationship with what nature really is, which we really don't know fully, which carries a lot of mystery, which is always alive and unfolding and changing. Modern humanity has developed a relationship with the idea of what nature is. To give an example, most people in the modern world will not have a relationship with a tree that is in front of them. First of all, I mean, they can, of course, if they take the time to develop the relationship, everybody can do that. But the first thing that happens for a modern, educated human being is that this person, even when standing in front of the tree, will have a relationship with the idea that he or she has about the tree. And we'll start by saying, oh, this is a juniper tree, and juniper trees are like this and like that. That's having a relationship with the idea you have about the tree. The tree It's a relationship with the tree that you have in your head, not the tree, the real tree that is in front of you. And really, if you have a relationship with a tree that is in front of you for days, with enough time, you find out that you really don't know much about the tree, and that which you had in your head is not enough. And then you start feeling the presence of the tree. You cannot feel the presence of a tree when you just talk about trees, or when you have a huge knowledge about botanics and all those in the science of trees. That doesn't help you feel the presence of the tree. But when you are with the tree for a few days and you become a friend of the tree, you start feeling the presence of the tree. And the tree starts feeling your presence. And that becomes a relationship. That's a relationship. No, it's no longer a relationship with the idea you have in your head about the tree. Now you're having a relationship with the tree, with that being, with a real being, because you feel the presence of the tree and the tree is feeling your presence. That is very powerful. That, in my opinion, is the methodology we need to use to face climate change. We human beings can have much more capacity and much more power to work with nature, as nature is now harmed by climate change, and transform the damage into an opportunity for healing when having a relationship, a relationship with the real things, with the real beings of nature, not with the ideas that we have about them in our head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about in the book, you talk about the importance of listening and of presence. And I think you introduced this idea of learning by listening as opposed to learning by suffering.
Yes.
And so when you talk about something as big as climate change and how that's such a massive issue, such a massive problem that we all, of course, contribute to in some way, but paradoxically, I think we generally as humans think, oh, I'm just one individual. I can't really do anything to change it. And where I'm going with this is in the book, you also mentioned something I thought was really intriguing. You talk about the transformative power of chaos to bring a remedy to what we cannot remedy by ourselves. And what I wonder is if we cultivate this capacity to be present, have a relationship, feel the spirit of something, and make that connection as a way of being in relationship and healing and sustaining and nurturing, that's wonderful. That's learning. Perhaps that's the example of learning by listening. But often I think we don't do that, or we think we don't know how to do that. And by contrast, we then learn by suffering or maybe by chaos. And it's chaos that then brings a remedy to what we can't remedy by ourselves. But I'm not sure if I have any of that right. Will you talk to me about the transformative power of chaos to remedy what we can't remedy by ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote an example of that in the first book I published, The Time of the Black Jaguar. I think it's in the introduction. Uh, about that time when I wrote that first book, there had been an earthquake in Japan, and I happened to know someone from Japan, and this actually a Korean woman who was living and grew up in Japan. She sent messages right after the disaster when people were living out in the streets. Homes had been destroyed, and some homes were fragile, and people didn't want to go back to their homes. So they were outside in the streets, and they gathered around fires, and they collected whatever they could from what they could find in the places where there were still trees and something that could be edible. And they didn't have a roof on top of their heads, so they they looked at the stars at night. And then the elderly people started telling stories. And she was really amazed, and this is what she transmitted in her messages of how happy people were suddenly.
Mm.
They had lost their homes, they had been hit by a strong earthquake, people had died, it was devastating, and suddenly they were outside sleeping out in the without a home, without a roof on top of their heads, looking at the stars, hearing a story, and they felt human again.
Mm.
Felt really the real human being that belongs to nature, that not only belongs to humanity, to the mainstream culture of humanity, and has to respond to it and do what it tells you to do, but a human being that is open to a big sky full of stars and to the stories of elders who remember ancient wisdom and have beautiful things to say. And she said that she was amazed that when she looked around, people were happy. So that was created by chaos. That's an example of what you were asking, brilliant.
Yeah.
The earthquake broke the order. That's what chaos does. It breaks the order. But the order had become unhealthy. Order is not always healthy. There is unhealthy order.
Mm-hmm.
Too conservative, too imposing, forgetful, forgot some essential things, uh, manipulative, controlling, whatever.
Yeah.
When the order becomes unhealthy, it has to be remedied. And in nature, what remedies unhealthy order is chaos. What remedies unhealthy chaos is good order. So this is the dynamic of life. And when we are in a situation like we are now, humanity, we see the order is breaking everywhere. And we're saying we're living a time of chaos. But this chaos is necessary because we cannot go back to where we were before. For a long time, humanity developed some cultural aspects that are not healthy at all.
Yeah.
And we want them to change, and chaos is helping us. And you're right that the more we listen and the more we are in partnership with the sacred beings of nature and the divine sacred beings of the spirit world, we can receive guidance. And then we don't need much distraction or destructive chaos because we're listening, we're following instructions. But when we are kind of deaf and we don't listen, and we are just trying to resolve everything with our own human intelligence, just talking to ourselves in our head, then we need chaos. We need something to destroy what's in our head, to show us that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So really, really ask questions for which the answers are not in our head. They're out there.
Yeah.
We need to listen to them. We need to receive our thoughts instead of always making up our thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, as this conversation goes on, I'm reminded of a saying that is often attributed to the Western actor John Wayne. That there's no evidence that he really said it. I've looked it up, but the saying is, life is painful. It's even more painful if you're stupid. Kind of thing. Life is already hard enough. Why bring more on ourselves? And I want to ask you then about this. So if we don't have to live, like, chaos is part of existence, clearly, and yet we can perhaps mitigate or diminish some of the pain that comes as a result of, us not living in direct relationship with ourselves or others. But one tool, perhaps, or one approach that might be useful, if I understand it right, that I've heard you talk about, is something called Munai.
Yeah.
Right. And if this is, so I'll ask you to talk about this. And if I'm understanding right, that this is something that as we live and act in the world, if we're consciously cultivating and living and acting with Munai, then that can perhaps help us to not need chaos and pain to achieve transformation. Will you talk about Munai and how you see that?
Yeah. Well, for those who are not familiar with this Quechua word, uh, in the most basic level of the most basic meaning, Munai just means to want. Noka Munani. Noka Munani, I want. Noka Munakuiki, which is also a way of saying I love you, I want you. Um, Munai, to want. In in the Andean culture, Andean Amazonian culture, which is a culture that is developed throughout thousands of years in a very difficult environment. The Andes are hard to live in, very cold or very hot, steep mountains. You gotta be strong to live in that environment. You gotta face a very, very tough, beautiful but tough nature. Same in the jungle. In the jungle, just walk a few feet out of your hut and you can die. Right? You know, there can be a snake or a jaguar or a something, and and it's over. So our ancestors didn't run away from difficulty, and they didn't tame their environment. They actually developed a relationship with that environment and the dangers or challenges of that environment. And in that relationship, they became really strong people, physically strong, mentally strong, emotionally strong, and most of all, spiritually strong, capable spiritually, awake, aware, and capable of developing very good relationships with the very sources of the dangers and difficulties that they faced every day. So, Munai is not something that we can take for granted. To have willpower to back your actions, to say, I'm going to do this, I want to do this, and I'm going to do this for my people, for my family, for myself. I'm going to climb that mountain and I'm going to farm way up there. That takes a lot of will. And that's how our people are. They do things like that. I'm going to go walk 5 days in the jungle and come back with food for my family. That takes a lot of willpower. So that willpower, Munai, taken to a spiritual level, is the power to take care of ourselves, is the power to assume responsibility for the well-being of our lives and the lives of the people that we care for, that we love. Which means that if there is a difficulty, if there is a challenge, if there is something that we are facing that seems impossible, we don't see it as impossible when we have Munai. Our Munai is a power within ourselves that makes us do the work that is required to learn and to grow up in front of difficulties and to be able to prevail, and help ourselves and help everyone. In the modern world, my perception is that people have given their power away. People are expecting that more powerful people who are more powerful than them, do the work for them, or make the decisions for them, or find the solutions for them.
Yeah.
While in a culture that encourages from childhood every individual to develop their own Munai, you assume responsibility for the well-being of your life and for the well-being of the world you live in. You are as responsible for the well-being of your home and your in the natural environment around you as anyone else. And when people gather in community to work together and everyone has a strong munai, they can do wonderful things. Very, very powerful work. And if you read the history of the Andean people, Incas, pre-Incas, and you learn about the things they did, you say, wow, how did they do that? There are even theories that they were helped by extraterrestrials. And believe me, they were not helped by extraterrestrials. They were just very, very capable people because they developed this munai. So munai is a type of energy, the energy of willpower. And you can have a little munai, or you can have medium munai, or you can have a lot of munai, which means munai is an inner power that has to be developed, that can grow. How does it grow? You have to feed it, nourish it. From where? From the great sources of energy of the earth and the universe. One of them, a very powerful one, the sun. By breathing light, by having a relationship with the light of the sun, with the power of mountains, with the power of trees, of a forest, and go there and humbly ask to be nourished, to be filled with this sacred natural power. And that's not where it ends. Then you have to also take care of your leaks. Like I say in the book, our ancestors saw us as sacred pots, manka or manko, a pot that contains light, that contains energy. We can only have a really developed, strong munai to assume responsibility for our lives, work with others on favor of life, when we don't have a broken pot or a pot full of holes. Because we could go to a retreat or climb a mountain or do a vision quest and be filled with energy and sacred power and light. And then a few days later, we can have a leak, an emotional leak or a sexual leak or a mental leak. And then all that energy, misuse it. It just drains away. It goes away of us for something silly because we didn't know how to contain it, because we didn't have the capacity to not only develop our munai, but develop ourselves as the pot that contains the munai. We need to become solid containers of the light that lives within us. So what that which is in us can grow, develop, and become refined. Mm-hmm. Refinement. When elders, people who have walked their life like this, their entire life, at some point they become refined. What comes from out of their mouth, their actions, their wisdom is refined. What got refined? The light that they contain within themselves, that they received from all the sacred sources and powers of the earth and the universe, became cooked and refined. So those people are delicious. They have medicine to give. They have something really, really beautiful to offer, to nourish others and to heal others. And we all can do that. Everyone can do that. There's no a few people that were born with that destiny. Everyone can be like that. Everyone. As long as we take care of how we nourish our light, ourselves, and how we contain it without leaking it.
Yeah, thank you for expounding on that. As you share I'm thinking of something I once read from a spiritual teacher named Gabrielle Bernstein, where if she says something like, if our presence doesn't work, our words probably won't either. Right.
Yeah.
And that idea that you talk about with elders, those who have become refined, who have become the container that holds the light, that then nourishes, that and maybe this is what traditional cultures call elders.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a different quality or strength or power to their speaking and to their actions, right? And that's, like you say, that's something that it's not just some people are that way and some people aren't, but rather that's something we can cultivate. That's
Yes.
a really beautiful thought. And the importance of that, there's a sentence in the book where you talk about Munai that really resonated with me, where you say, without Munai, individuals often end up doing what they do not want to do and not doing what they really want to do.
Yes.
And to me, I think it's a shame, because I'll think about this pretty regularly, that someday we'll all leave this life, right? And at some point, and when we leave, there will be a perspective. Will we be grateful? Will we be fulfilled? Or will we be resentful? Will we be sorry? Yeah. Right. And it's at some level that's a choice, but I hope I don't wait until the end of my life to figure out what choice I made, but instead to do what you're talking about, of nourishing this and becoming a container, and then ultimately sharing that and recognizing. I think I'm just as I'm talking with you here, Arkan, I think I'm realizing what I want more fully for my life. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and as you probably remember, Brilliant, I refer in the book to Munai because I had to translate it.
Mm-hmm.
In Quechua we say Munai, but I wanted to be very clear when I translated and refer to the will,
mm-hmm.
not only willpower, but the will of the heart.
Yeah.
The will of the heart, because there are many parts in ourselves that want things. The question is, what does my heart want? And the question also is, is my life guided by what my heart wants? Or am I allowing other parts of me to guide my actions? And if there are other parts of me guiding my actions, there can be a part of me that is fearful, a part of me that is selfish, a part of me that is greedy, a part of me that likes to compete with others.
Mm-hmm.
I need to look at those parts of me. I don't want to harm them or destroy them because they are parts of me. I can raise them, I can elevate them, I can teach them, but not have a fight within myself. How do I do that? How do I put myself into accord? By having a very strong presence, as you said, presence in the center, Chaupipi, in the center of myself, that is in my heart, my heart connected to my spirit, connected to the earth, a place of confluence, a strong, strong presence in myself, material and spiritual, physical, human, and spiritual, eternal.
Mm-hmm.
In this, carrying the whole thing and capable of including everything, the most powerful part of myself, that one needs to guide my life. And then everything, for someone who wants to do the work, for someone who says, yes, I want to refine myself, I want to be one of those elders when I grow up, it begins with what I am saying. Observe yourself and see if it is your heart who is guiding you, your actions, your decisions. And see if you make a decision today from your heart, and then tomorrow someone who is not your heart within you, a part of you, changes that decision. What are you following?
Yeah.
who is the guiding force, the guiding principle within yourself. And then when we realize that it's not that easy, there are two things to do. One is increase our sacred power, have more energy, because doing this work needs energy, and then concentrate that energy in the heart. Feed the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the heart is not the head. The heart is different than the head. The heart feels. The heart perceives through feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The heart has interest. As going back to the beginning of our conversation, the heart is very interested in relationships.
Yeah.
More than in knowledge, more than in controlling or being the manager of the world.
Yeah.
The heart has an immense capacity for relationships.
And
Develop, yeah.
Oh, sorry. And I love your view. I'd never had this before about the heart as a sort of mechanism through which our spirit is known or expressed. And there's two sentences in your book that point that to me, where you write, in support of our awareness, the mind needs to be humble, listening while thinking, listening to the little bird that lives in the heart that never stops singing. Awareness comes from listening to the heart in order to hear that which the spirit knows.
Yes.
And that idea of the heart allowing us to be aware of what the spirit knows is a really beautiful distinction for me.
Yes, because there are two worlds that we live in: the material physical world,
mm-hmm.
and the spirit world. We have a spirit that belongs to the spirit world, and we have this humanness, in this human body that it belongs to the earth, that belongs to the physical material world. And these are two worlds. These are parallel worlds. These are two different worlds with different ways of being and different natural laws.
Mm-hmm.
And there's got to be communication between the two worlds. There's got to be communication between these two aspects of us. What in the way we are made, what is the place where that confluence happens? Where is the meeting point of our human, physical humanness and our spiritual self? In most ancient traditions and in the culture I come from, we know that the meeting place is the heart. And then when we have both the intelligence or the awareness, consciousness of the physical material world, and we combine that with the awareness and intelligence of the mind of the spirit, and those two come together in the heart, what the union of those two produces has immense wisdom, immense power to guide our actions towards a good direction, to having a good life, a beautiful life.
Mm-hmm.
When we only have one and we ignore the other one, we are out of balance. We suffer and we make others suffer. And so again, the truth, Brilliant, we have everything we need. We are not a mistake of nature. We were really well made. we're very, very sacred, beautiful forms of life as humans.
Not according to Christianity, Arkan.
I heard that. And we need to reclaim it.
Mm-hmm.
Claim it not against Christianity or against anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple. Get to know yourself.
Yeah.
Get to know yourself. Munai is self-responsibility in some way. Munai is, I'm going to use my own will, power, the energy that lives within me to know me and to exercise my capacities. And while I exercise my capacities, I get to know me better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
instead of always having to follow what something tells me that I am or that I am not.
Right.
Get to know myself,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that's coming up for me as we have this conversation is a number of years ago, I completed a training program with an organization called Heart Math. Do you know Heart Math?
Yes, I heard about it. I was very, I had a big smile on my face when I heard someone say that according to the research of the Heart Math Institute, they knew that the the brain
Mm.
received orders from somewhere else, and when they did the research, they realized that the commands that come to the head come from the heart.
Yeah.
And then they were taking the research further to see if the human heart receives orders or commands, signals from somewhere else. And then they were finding out that from the earth.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I know this organization is very focused on scientific research to try to
Yeah.
understand and validate, just discover the truth, I suppose. But what I think is happening is there is a validation of a lot of traditional wisdom. And something that I remember learning about, and I didn't research the original study, but I was intrigued by what I learned in the program, which was when there was some research where subjects were connected to a device that would measure their physiology, so it could see what was going on with their respiration and their heart rate and their perspiration and all these things. And then they were shown images on a computer screen that were randomly selected from a pool of images, some of which were beautiful, sunsets and flowers and kittens and oceans, and others were traumatic, disturbing, even like accident scenes and, injuries and, things, monsters, things like this. And what the researchers discovered was that there was a physiological reaction when an image was viewed. Of course, people would respond in certain ways, certain chemicals like cortisol, or stress hormones when there was a disturbing or distressing image. But that's not particularly surprising. What the researchers were surprised to discover was that there was a physiological response before the picture was shown. That
Mm.
somehow the subject seemed to know, their body seemed to know what was
Yes.
coming before it even came.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
amazing. And that explains to me intuition, when you have a hunch or a knowing before you've learned something, that in some way, I think there is a part of us in the
Well,
heart that
if
knows.
if I can clarify this part, it's not before you know something.
Okay.
The knowing begins with the body. That the body that has a heart connected to the heart of the earth
Mm-hmm.
always knows first. And that is you knowing with feeling, through awareness in the body and the heart, through feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The one who doesn't know first is the head,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a part of you, it's not you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So we need to, humanity needs to correct this. There have been hundreds of years, but no, maybe not hundreds, but enough years, enough of modern civilization teaching an opposite way, a different way, where the first one who knows is the head, and and if the head doesn't know, then we assume that we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and that is not true. You just said it, and these experiments are confirming that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, indigenous people have always we have always identified ourselves as earth people. It's the same thing, indigenous people, earth people. The truth is, no, we are all earth people.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a heart connected to the heart of the earth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we need to reclaim that. We need to realign ourselves in the natural order.
Mm-hmm.
In the natural order, the head doesn't go first. The head goes last. it's useful. It's very useful to use our heads, and our rational capacities are useful. But when they go first, they are an interference because they assume a knowledge that has not gone through the body and the heart first.
Yeah.
That can be misleading. That
and
can
then,
be.
and then we get the world we've created right now with the climate change and these other issues.
That's right. That's right. So you said John Wayne said that. What can you say it again? That
Life is painful. It's even more painful when you're stupid.
yeah, exactly. And I add to that that we can become stupid when we think we're smart.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious about forgetfulness and remembering. And in fact, there's a word, if I understood it right, Walte?
Walthai.
Walthai.
Walthai. To bring the energy back to the center. Walthai.
So this as a concept is very valuable, right? Of recognizing. So will you talk about what that is and how we can do it?
As I mentioned before, there are different parts of ourselves that want different things, and they take turns to guide our actions. For example, you're you are doing something, and then suddenly you become really hungry. You want to eat food, or you have a craving. Then that may take over. You want to run and get some food. That craving or that hunger took your body somewhere else. Decided, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to go eat. That's a simple example. There are millions of examples. Could be many different things, emotional things that happen, thoughts that come to your mind, related to desires or fears, and they just take you. Mm-hmm. Do this, do that, do that. And that is a dispersed human being that has no cohesion, that has not learned yet to be guided by a central heart. Walthai is an essential aspect of Andean culture, where we practice bringing ourselves back to the center, recentering ourselves, bringing all those parts of us that can be scattered and that take turns to use our body and guide our actions to collect ourselves and come back to the center. So all those dispersed energies come back to the center, and then in that centered state of being, we remember ourselves. We remember the center of ourselves, and we, one more time, are in a position where we can be guided by that part of ourselves that is connected to the earth and connected to the spirit world. Connected to the earth and connected to the spirit world, the purpose of our actions goes beyond the little needs of parts of us. Our actions are connected to the needs of what we belong to, of how our life has an influence on all life. And then we participate. We are not isolated human beings just taking care of their little needs, but we are a presence on earth in relationship with everything else, participating in the well-being of all life. As a participant, as someone who collaborates, who gives their gifts, their best capacities for the well-being of the life that we belong to. And when the life that we belong to has health and has happiness and has joy and has abundance and is in a state of reproduction and fulfillment, that's what comes back to us. Then we feel happy because everything around us has been made happy by all of us, including me who felt in connection to the earth and the spirit world how is how I participate, how I act, what actions I choose, and how I choose to perform them, how to do them in a way that they don't cause harm, but that they cause life to continue being alive in the most beautiful way
Mm.
in the moment.
Yeah, this view, as you, thank you so much for articulating this. I'm realizing as you share it that this is a perspective I've been looking for. Well, as the final thing I have to share with you now, as a thank you, an attempt to express my gratitude to you, I have gone to a website called kiva.org. It's a micro lending site. It's based in San Francisco, but it works around the world. And I have made a micro loan to a woman in Peru who is named Narda Ana Maria. She works as a primary school teacher, and she will use this money to buy educational materials like books and crayons for her community. And then when she repays that, I won't earn the interest. The field partners who make it possible will. So hopefully that's also a virtuous cycle that will carry far forward. So Arkan, thank you so much for sharing of your wisdom and your insight and your energy, your talent, and your, what I would see as love with me and with everybody listening today.
Thank you, Brilliant. Thanks to you very much for exactly the same.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the School for Good Living podcast. Before you take off, I just want to extend an invitation to you. Despite living in an age where we have more comforts and conveniences than ever before, life still isn't working for many people. Whether it's here in the developed world where we deal with depression, anxiety, loneliness, addiction, divorce, unfulfilling jobs or relationships that don't work, or in the developing world where so many people still don't have access to basic things like clean water or sanitation or healthcare or education, or they live in conflict zones, there are a lot of people on this planet that life isn't working very well for. If you're one of those people, or even if your life is working, but you have the sense that it could work better, consider signing up for the School for Good Living's transformational coaching program. It's something I've designed to help you navigate the transitions that we all go through. Whether you've just graduated, or you've gone through a divorce, or you've gotten married, headed into retirement, starting a business, been married for a long time, whatever. No matter where you are in life, this 9-month program will give you the opportunity to go deep in every area of your life, to explore life's big questions, to create answers for yourself in a community of other growth-minded individuals. And it can help you get clarity and be accountable to realize more of your unrealized potential. It can also help you find and maintain motivation. In short, it's designed to help you live with greater health, happiness, and meaning so that you can be, do, have, and give more. Visit goodliving.com to learn more or to sign up today.